Welcome back to the newspaper review. I am your host, Fatou George. On today's headline at the Point newspaper, Barrow hails late Buhari for Gambia's democratic dispensation. Gambian journalist Sankule Janko wins ECOWAS Radio Award. US imposes new visa restrictions on Gambia and 30 others. Police investigate burglary at National Audit Office. Now the news in details. His Excellency President Adama Barrow on Friday arrived in Nigeria to express his condolences to the family of late former President Muhammadu Buhari at his home village of Daura, Katsina State. Upon arrival, President Adama Barrow received a guard of honor at the Umaru Yaradua Airport in Katsina. Secretary to Katsina State Government Barrister Abdullahi Gaba Fakari received President Barrow at the Buhari family home in Duwari alongside former First Lady, His Excellency Madam Aisha Buhari and her family. President Barrow, in paying respect, sympathized with the bereaved family and described the late Buhari as courageous brother and friend who fought for democracy in Africa and the Gambia. The president added that late President Buhari defended the decision of the Gambian people and vividly recalled his remarks at a closed-door meeting. If Jammeh wants to challenge the sub-region, he is welcome. I think he has friends here. Let them talk to him. The delegation later proceeded to visit the grave and pray to God to grant the deceased external rest. It will be recalled that President Buhari played a prominent role in ensuring smooth democratic transition in the Gambia at a critical moment, and served as the mediator-in-chief on the Gambian political impasses from December 2016 to January 2017. Late former President Buhari died on 13 July 2025 in London and was laid to rest in his hometown in Daura 15 July 2025. Source: State House. The United States has imposed new visa restrictions on citizens of 31 African countries. These restrictions limit non-immigrant and non-diplomatic visas to single entry with a validity period of just 3 months. These restrictions, announced by the Trump administration, primarily involved limiting the validity and number of entries for visas issued to citizens of these countries. Countries affected: West Africa, Benin, Burkina Faso, Gambia, Ghana, Niger, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Togo, Central Africa, Angola, Chad, Cameroon, Congo-Brazzaville, Congo-DR, Equatorial Guinea, East Africa, Ethiopia, Malawi, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Southern Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, etc. These restrictions apply to visa issued after July 8, 2025, while visa issued before this date remain valid until their original expiration date. Gambian journalist Sankule Janko has been named ECOWAS Radio Reporter of the Year, earning regional acclaim for his powerful storytelling and commitment to public service journalism. Janko, who works with West African Democrats Radio WADR based in Senegal, was among 12 journalists honored at the inaugural ECOWAS Media Excellence Awards held in Banjul. His recognition in the radio category brought pride to the host country and marked a significant milestone in the Gambia's growing presence in regional journalism. To say I am happy is an understatement, Juncker told The Point in an interview shortly after receiving his award. As journalists, our work often goes unnoticed, so to be recognized by an institution like ECOWAS is massive. Hopefully one day I will tell my grandchildren I was the first winner in this category. His award comes at a historic moment as the Gambia hosted the ECOWAS Media Excellence Awards for the first time, a testament to the country's improved press freedom and growing role in regional discourse. Janko's recognition not only celebrates his journalistic excellence but also symbolizes the rising impact of Gambian media voices in shaping narratives across West Africa. The police is investigating a case of burglary at the National Audit Office where laptops and a bag valued at $351,000 were stolen from the ICT Supreme Office. CCTV footage captured 2 unidentified individuals entering the building and leaving with the items. The scene was visited by CID and CSI teams. However, fingerprint collection was not possible due to prior contamination before police arrival. As part of the investigation, several suspects have been arrested for questioning. In a major breakthrough on Friday, July 25, 2025, police have arrested the prime suspect, Modu Mustafa Jallo, alias Jamaica, during a night operation near the Westfield Cooperative area. His arrest followed sustained surveillance and assistance from a recruited informant. Modu Mustafa Jallo has confessed to the burglary and admitted to selling the stolen laptops at the Serekunda black market. Meanwhile, investigators are actively working to trace and apprehend the alleged receiver and recover the stolen property. The suspect is currently under police custody as investigations continue. The Gambia Police Force assures the public that efforts are ongoing to bring all involved to justice and recover the stolen items. And now in sports. In a sign of his growing influence in global football leadership, the GFF President Lamin Kaba Bajo joined FIFA President Gianni Infantino at the opening ceremony of FIFA Africa office in Rabat, Morocco on Saturday. Bajo, who is also the president of the West Africa Sub-Regional Bloc, WAFUA, later watched Nigeria's 3-2 win over the host in the CAF Africa Women's Cup of Nations finals. The FIFA Africa office is established by the World Football Governing Body to develop even closer ties with its 54 countries member associations, EMAs, and facilitate football's growth on the continent. These followed similar hubs in Paris, France, Miami, United States, and Jakarta, Indonesia, that FIFA said underpins its aim of building even closer and stronger local links to its 211 EMAs around the world, with the goal of facilitating football's growth globally. President Bajo's attendance of this milestone celebration for Africa came just 2 days after the FIFA chief personally extended his appreciation and thanks to Mr. Bajo and his leadership for the growth and development of football in the Gambia. Samaga have regained promotion to the Gambian Football Federation Division 1 League. The academy defeated RS Talinding 7-6 on post-match penalty shutouts after regular time ended goalless in their nail-biting Elite League promotion playoff final played at Dream Sports Academy Complex in Basuri. Samga and RS Talinding both fought hard to beat each other to regain promotion to the First Division League, but normal term ended goalless. This pushed the match into penalty shootouts, which ended 7-6 on favor of Samaga. Win earned Samaga a place in the country's Elite League. Samga were demoted to the Second Division League last season following their dismal performance in the First Division League. RS Talinding missed the chance to gain promotion to the First Division League after losing to Samaga in their Elite League promotion playoff final. Now to the Foreign newspaper headline. Kartong calls for fair play amid dispute over Gunjur-Berendin boundary demarcation. Ibrahim Dafe rejects confession in Tujere murder of Aliou Cisse. Register General question on government's right to sell seized land. Drivers, pedestrians complain of wrongful parking on roadsides pavement. Gambia government launches youth rice production scheme to reduce imports. Now the news in details. Residents of Kartong village have called on the government to act fairly and transparently in addressing a controversial boundary demarcation exercise involving neighboring Gunjur and Berending. The villagers, who say they were not consulted about the recent exercise carried out by the Department of Lands and Surveys, have rejected the process and expressed fears losing their farmlands. The concerns were raised during a community meeting held on Sunday, July 20, 2025 at the residence of the village Alcalo, 94-year-old Demba Jabang. Kartong, one of the oldest settlements in Kombo South, said they were bordered with Sanyang and Sifo before the establishment of Gunjur. Village elders insist that Kartong predates Gunjur and that over time, Berending emerged on lands originally belonging to Kartong. The Alcalo narrated the historical background of Berending's origins, which he said was based on oral accounts passed down by elders he met in his youth. According to him, Berending was first settled by a man named Buluwa Sanyang, who arrived in Kartong at a young age. There has always been a strong relationship between Kartong and Gunjur. We call on the government to play fairly so this bound remains, he said. The villagers expressed worry that the demarcation could lead to a loss of farming lands, which are essential for the survival of the community. Among those voicing strong opposition was Imam Kausumane, another elder of the village, who issued a warning to the authorities. Let the government come and remove its borderlines in our bush. We are not going to allow them to take our lands, whether by death or alive. We will take our lands back, he said. As tensions rise, villagers say they are not opposed to peaceful resolution, but insist that any demarcation process must be based on consultation, transparency, and historical land ownership. For Katong, the land is question is not just property. It is the last piece of viable farmland on which their livelihoods depend. Ibrahima Defe, standing trial for the murder of Aliou Cisse, a native of Banyaka who died in Tujering, has rejected the confession statement attributed to him by the police. The case before Justice Sidi Jobate at the Banjul High Court has become a battleground over the admissibility of statements allegedly made by the accused during police interrogation. On a previous hearing date, the court ruled against the prosecution's cautionary statement after hearing testimony from an independent witness that supported the defense claims of caution. The current focus of the trial is on the voluntary statement purportedly given by Ibrahim Dafe. Police Sub-Inspector Modu Baji, who took the statement, testified that the accused was informed of the charges and legal procedures before signing the document. However, the defense lawyer Tamsir Jallo strongly contested this, arguing that the circumstances of the voluntary statements taken mirrored those of the cautionary statement, including the presence of the same independent witness and the accused being handcuffed. The case has been adjourned until October 9, 2025, when the court will resume the mini-trial on the validity of the voluntary statement. Drivers and pedestrians alike have complained about vehicles being wrongfully parked on pavements along the Serekunda-Westfield Road and near the markets. The pedestrians complain of drivers parking their cars on pavements reserved as pedestrian walkways and argue that some cars park in these walkways for hours, thereby affecting the smooth flow of traffic. I think we should have parking space where shop owners and customers can park their cars, Usman Toure, a pedestrian, said. Mr. Toure said lack of parking space affects traffic flow by blocking the free movement of people and forcing some to walk on the main road. Sana Barrow, another pedestrian, also said that people should not park their cars on the pavement, arguing that the road is not wide enough to allow cars to be parked in such places for hours. To address this issue is a long overdue because it has always been there. I think it is time we start thinking about addressing it now, once and for all, said Fatou Diouf, a vehicle owner and a driver. If there is a parking lot somewhere in the market, I will not park my car on the pavement. There is none, and that is why I do not have a choice. To address this issue is a long overdue because it has always been there. I think it is time we start thinking about addressing it now, once and for all, she added. Mohamed Cisse, a shop owner and driver, said there is no parking space for his car in front of his shop and agreed that parking on the pavement affects traffic flow. Now in sports, Real de Banjul State intend to partake in CAF Champions League qualifiers. The champions of the Gambia Football Federation GFF First Division League, Real de Banjul, have stated their intention to partake in the continent's elite club competition. The City Boys won the 2024-2025 season following back-to-back wins in the previous 2 seasons. This feat is the first of its kind in the domestic top tier. Last Friday, the reigning champions held their annual end-of-season meeting and have since informed the public of their next CAF Champions League qualifier bound. The three-peat champions will now turn their attention to return to the continent's club competition. The City Boys qualified to compete in the CAF Champions League qualifiers after clinching their 15th title, the club stated. Despite CAF's upgrade to a higher standard in requirements of clubs to meet, the City Boys are ready to compete in the continent's club competition. Thanks to the hard work the Real de Banjul management put into structure the club to meet all the requirements set by CAF. The club further stated that the team will undergo a little break before returning to Live Your Dream Sports Academy. Now to the Standard newspaper headlines. Gambians in Mauritania call for action over harassment. Street children torn from vendors to beggars. ICJ says Gambians minor genocide case can proceed. Gambia secures $19.9 million to boost rural youth women's resilience. Now the news in details. Several Gambians have contacted the Standard over what they call the persistent daily police provocation, intimidation, pursuing and harassment they suffer in Mauritania. One of them, a student, said their plight is getting worse by day despite interventions and by the Gambian embassy. Resident permit fees have been hiked to over 3,000 Mauritania Ogia, one of the highest for any migrant community here. Worse still, Gambians spend days on ending at queuing endless to obtain that very permit. In the meantime, the police continue to arrest our people, taking them to languish in police stations and refusing to free them even after interventions by our embassy officials. A student attending a unitary in Nokoti cried to the Standard. He said even the latest intervention by the Gambia government to issue national ID cards to Gambians there is fruitless because the Mauritanian authorities have now shifted the goalpost, demanding that everyone now requires a passport to process a permit if you are ever going to get one. Another, a woman wondering what bilateral relations exist between the Gambia and Mauritania, while people from Mauritania enjoy peace and total freedom in the Gambia. We are here hiding in our houses for fear of arrest by the police. Please, can someone help us from above? We cannot continue hiding or facing harassment, she cried. An elderly migrant interviewed by the Standard urged the Gambia government to call the Mauritanian ambassador in Banjul over this matter. Let them walk in with the Gambian embassy here to verify all these claims, and they will see that we are not being alarmist but are really suffering, he said. Children who once roamed the streets of urban Gambia as petty vendors are now turning to aggressive begging, raising concerns about the country's fight against child labor and the enforcement of laws meant to protect vulnerable minors. At the Senegambia, one of the country's busiest tourist areas, a growing number of children, some as young as 5, spend their days on the street begging instead of stealing. Eyewitness accounts from restaurant workers and residents in the area suggest a worrying trend, a shift from child street vending to calculated and often manipulative begging practices. These children are becoming too many around here, said Fatou Keita, a sales girl at a local restaurant in Senegambia. This trend stands in violation of the Gambia Students Act of 2005, particularly Section 66, which strictly prohibits children under the age of 16 from engaging in labor that interferes with their education or endangers their physical, mental, spiritual, or moral development. The law also criminalized forced child begging and classified it under the worst forms of child labor. To tackle this issue, Minister Kinte revealed that her ministry has engaged UNICEF to conduct an assessment of migrants and daras Quranic boarding schools in areas where street begging is prevalent. This initiative aims to understand the root causes of street begging among children and develop effective strategies to address the problem. Judges at the United Nations highest court on Friday dismissed preliminary objections by Myanmar to a case alleging the Southeast Asian nations is responsible for genocide against the Rohingya ethnic minority. The decision establishing the International Court of Justice jurisdiction sets the stage for airing evidence of atrocities against the Rohingya that human rights groups and a UN probe say breached the 1948 Genocide Convention. The Gambia filed the case in 2019 aimed international outrage of the treatment of the Rohingya, hundreds of thousands of whom fled to neighboring Bangladesh, aimed a brutal crackdown by Myanmar forces in 2017. It argued that both Gambia and Myanmar were parties to the 1948 convention and that all signatories have a duty to ensure it was enforced. Judges at the court agreed. Ton Kane, president of the Burmese Rohingya Organization UK, welcomed the decision, saying 600,000 Rohingya are still facing genocide, while 1 million people in Bangladesh camps, they are waiting for a hope for justice. On 24 July 2025, the African Development Bank approved a $19.93 million grant to fund the Resilience Building Vulnerable Youth and Women Support Project in the Gambia, aimed at combating poverty, unemployment, and migration. The initiative will create 1,500 jobs, support 500 women-led enterprises, and improve access to services in fragile regions. It targets health, education, food security, and financial inclusion, focusing on rural areas with high poverty and malnutrition rates. Thank you for listening, and please do stay tuned for more newspaper review. I remain your host, Fatou George.